to Scottsdale Roundup, a video tour of the programs, services, events, and unique businesses in the city of Scottsdale. Hello, I'm Kim Hanna. This year's spring training increased the amount of facilities to the Valley of the Sun with the opening of the new Salt River Stadium shared by the Diamondbacks and the Rockies. But another new stadium opened this spring that not too many people know about. It's the Miracle League of Arizona baseball field for children with disabilities. Dan Heron Sr. tells us the story.
Life is a ball game being played each day. Life is a ball game. Everybody can play.
Well, the Miracle League exists for one reason, and that is to provide programming for special needs kids. And we started this a few years ago with the hopes of being able to reach out to children that previously have been either underserved or not served at all as far as baseball. And so now there's an opportunity for these kids at absolutely no cost. We provide the insurance and the uniforms and all the equipment at no cost to the parents. So all they need to do is get their kids out here and just play ball. Well, it's quite unique. It's a rubberized turf, so the wheelchairs can get around. The walkers and the crutches can get around because it's got a surface that there's a bit of a give to, and if the kids do fall or whatever, they won't be hurt. And the rubberized turf, again, allows these chairs to get around the bases in an easy and a fun way.
Well, my name is Carl Thaw. This is my son, Nicholas Thaw. We are part of the Miracle Team Network that is giving special needs kids like Nicholas and his friends the opportunity to get out and play baseball and learn the sport of how to play baseball and to come out and have fun and to enjoy ourselves and give these kids a way to get out and have some activity. Gives these kids an opportunity to experience the game of baseball, learn things about baseball, and also gives them an opportunity to feel part of society, that they aren't left behind. And I've seen some amazing things with these kids that get out and play baseball. And some of them, it's a good therapy for them. Others I've seen that just enjoy the heck out of it and want to just play. And I've seen other kids that have been in walkers that put those walkers aside because the therapy that was behind it for them and the inspiration was just overwhelming. And it made them not want to have that walker anymore. And kids like my son deserve an opportunity to play sports like any child in this world.
Well, the Miracle League is comprised of 18 board members that have spent the last approximately 2 years to build a stadium that's right behind me. It's also comprised of a lot of other volunteers and individuals in the community that have supported us in, financially to be able to provide the service that we're going to be able to offer to these children in our community. Well, we sure could use their help. There's a lot of different ways. One, of course, is financially. We still have some funds to raise to complete the stadium. There's a couple of things like shading. We need shade, and that's something we really do need, and we would appreciate anybody could help us with that. And also as volunteers. People that live in the community may like to come out and volunteer. We have lots of different openings, and they could always contact us on our website, mlaz.org.
Being played each day. Life is a ball game. Everybody can play.
Please take the time to go out and watch these amazing athletes. They'll really appreciate it, and you'll be inspired by their love of our national pastime. Scottsdale has certainly changed from the days of Winfield Scott and cattle drives that went up the middle of Main Street, and our city is still changing today. Phase 1 of the Scottsdale Road beautification project is underway, and Teresa Hewish from the city gives us an update.
Hi, I'm Teresa Hewish with the City of Scottsdale Transportation Department. I'm going to talk to you a little bit today about the Scottsdale Road Streetscape project. A streetscape is a word that we use for the theme of the roadway. So everything that pulls together a common identity. You know, landscaping, bikeways, transit, public art, everything that makes it look like a unit instead of just haphazard pieces of a road thrown together. Scottsdale Road needs a streetscape because in the Bond 2000 election, Scottsdale voters decided to beautify Scottsdale Road for the entire 24 miles of the length. It is, after all, our signature street. We have guidelines for the entire section broken down into 6 different segments, and what we're doing now is building segment 1. Segment 1 is the section between Roosevelt Road and Earl Drive. So it's the southernmost section of Scottsdale Road in the city. Once it's completed, all 24 miles of Scottsdale Road won't look exactly the same. There will be common themes or elements that are the same. For example, the colors of the light posts and the traffic signals, but there will be other accent colors, landscaping that will be slightly different. Once segment 1 of Scottsdale Road construction is complete, we will have wider sidewalks, we'll have lots of landscaping, we'll have a brand new transit shelter that we're trying out just for Scottsdale Road for the first time. There will be different paving in the medians. There will be bike lanes, and it'll be all around really nice to drive, look at, walk, bike ride, whatever anybody wants to do to travel on Scottsdale Road. During construction of segment 1, we'll have 1 travel lane closed so that the construction workers can do their job safely, and 2 travel lanes open. Business access is open, and we expect this project to be done by fall of this year.
Thanks, Teresa, and we can't wait to see the finished project. One of the standard meals offered here in the Southwest is chili. It's also the official dish of the city. There are hundreds of ways to prepare it, but Scottsdale Fire Department's Ross Deedy will give you his version of this delicious dish, along with fire safety tips when cooking at home.
Welcome to the kitchen of Scottsdale Fire Station 9 here at the Scottsdale Airport. We're joined today by engineer Ross Deedy, who's going to be talking with us about cooking safety, something he takes seriously, and also prepares a mean chili from what I've been told. So what are you cooking for us?
I am making some chili today, Tiffany. Growing up in Montana, we made a lot of soups and stews and chilies in in the wintertime, and I like this recipe that I'm going to make today. It's really hard to screw up some chili.
Why don't you tell us some of the common mistakes people make that lead to cooking fires?
Well, the National Fire Protection Association, they send out the numbers every year, and a lot of the house fires, kitchen fires that we go on are caused by unattended food. People leaving their food in the oven, food on the stove, and then going to the grocery store, answering phones, attending to their child, stuff like that. So we're just going to show some safety tips on how not to have that happen, and we'll go from there.
Great. So if I'm cooking and say I get a small fire in my frying pan or even in the oven, what's the first thing you need to do? Do you grab it and run with it? What should I do?
Well, the first thing you want to do, Tiffany, is you want to turn your heat off. You know, if you have gas, turn your gas off. If you have an electric stove like we have here, you want to turn your heat off. And then you want to grab a lid for your pan that'll fit, and you want to slide it on to your pan like that. And that'll hold the heat in, plus it'll also starve your fire of oxygen, and it'll put your fire out.
What are some of the things that you can do to prevent either you from getting burned or a small child or somebody else in the kitchen?
A lot of burn injuries happen because of handles are turned out like this. The small kids in the kitchen, they want to come up here and grab it and see what's cooking. So to prevent that, you really want to turn your handles in this way. Another safety tip is always use a pot holder or a glove or anything that'll prevent you from grabbing this pan while it's hot. You always want to try to keep a 3-foot barrier around your stove, pot holders, the curtains, paper towels, so anything of that nature that can catch fire. You want to keep a 3-foot barrier around your oven or stove. Also, buildup of grease and you want to keep a clean area when you're cooking. Make sure that your oven is nice and clean when you cook it. Your stove top is clear of your 3-foot barrier of your grease. Make sure that your area is clean. Also, a 3-foot barrier around your oven and stove for children. Have them do something else. Working on homework is a great thing to do. Have them help you prepare the meal itself, which is a lot of fun for them. They always want to try to do that.
Well, why don't you get started and show us what's in your famous firefighter chili recipe?
Well, like I said, it's pretty hard to mess up chili. We also try to make it, we call it fireman proof.
So what does that mean?
We like to keep it simple.
Okay.
Some tomato sauce. Stewed tomatoes are really good in chili. And then of course your chili beans. Kidney beans, chili beans.
It's probably also a good recipe that you can cook, and if you get called out away from the station, come back, heat it up.
Absolutely.
Doesn't have to be hot out of the oven.
We always make sure that we turn our stoves off and our ovens off when we have to leave on an emergency call.
So you got the meat in the pan, and then is this just chili seasoning goes in the?
Yeah, chili seasoning in with the tomato sauce.
How long do you usually leave this cooking on the stove?
Oh, with this, as long as you keep an eye on it, you could cook this all day on a nice slow simmer. Great for gatherings. If you have a Super Bowl party, or if you want to watch the golf tournament, you can put this on and have friends over in the afternoon, and it's all ready to go.
So now you're getting the meat all browned up.
Right now we're just frying up the beef right now. You can also throw some pork in here, some sausage, venison if you've got it.
I know
It's
turkey
all
chili is
good.
one of my favorites.
Turkey chili, that's awesome too, yes.
So we talked about some of the ways to prevent a fire. If there is a fire and putting the pan on top and turning the heat off doesn't contain it, what's the next thing you do?
Well, you want to also keep a fire extinguisher close to your cooking area.
Okay.
The best one to get is an ABC fire extinguisher. And this is great for grease fires, wood fires, any kind of fire you're going to have in your house, small. This is a great little tool to have hanging around your kitchen. The best way to do that is you want to, it's called the pass system. You want to pull the pin, aim the hose, squeeze the handle, and sweep your area. Another good way to do this is if you have a backsplash up against your microwave here or your back wall, you can bank it off of that back wall so it'll rain down onto your fire also. So
it's basically smothering the fire so
that's exactly what it does. It's exactly what it does. The lid, it smothers the fire, takes the oxygen away, and that's exactly what a fire extinguisher will do. It'll take the oxygen away from your fuel, your fire, and put the fire out. If it's anything bigger than that, get out, call 911, we'll come. Don't be a victim.
Now, do you ever need to service these? I mean, do they sit under my sink for years and years? Are they still good? How do you really know?
It always says if you purchase one of these, it always says to service it once a year. You can take that to your local fire department and get it, find out where they get theirs serviced, or you can just go to any hardware store and buy yourself a new one every year. They're always great to have. But yes, there is a shelf life.
And there's a kind of an indication here on the kind of a sensor of sorts.
Yeah, you always want to try to keep your yellow arrow in the green area. Anything outside that green area, you're going to want to get a new one.
I'm going to help you with your meat a little bit here.
All right, thank you. Another thing with your fire extinguisher, you don't want to get up right on top of it because that's just going to blow it all over the place. You want to get back about 6 to 8 feet and again, let it rain down onto your fire.
Okay.
Another safety tip is you want to wear short sleeves or a tight fitting sleeve on your shirt. None of the big old wizard sleeves. Those aren't really good for cooking anyway, so.
They could probably easily drape in the pan,
right,
catch fire.
Right, especially if you have a gas stove or it's on the burner itself for a little bit of time, it's going to catch fire.
So once the meat is all brown, then you just add them together, huh?
Yeah, you can either rinse off your beef or your sausage, or you can just add it right to it. We got some pretty lean meat here, so we'll just add it right to our chili.
And this is when you'd let it simmer for a period of time.
Now you can let it simmer, yes.
Until they're ready to eat, or you get a call, or
right.
Game time.
And then you can always add spice if you like it. Sprinkle some cheese on top. You can sprinkle some cut up raw onion on top. You can throw some sour cream in there. You can, however you want to eat it.
Well, that certainly seems like a delicious and simple recipe. I'm sure your crew's excited to have some chili for dinner tonight. Thank you again, Ross, for sharing your delicious firefighter chili recipe.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Looking forward to trying it.
That looks great. You can top mine off with the works. Cheese, onion, sour cream, and some tangy hot sauce. Yum! From the romance and mystery of the Orient Express to the nostalgia of the big band era and the Chattanooga Choo Choo, railroad trains have played a huge part in our world history. Scottsdale is home to just such a train car that aided one president in laying secret plans during World War II and helped re-elect another president after the war. Len Marcis lets us in on the secrets of this famous train car.
On August 3rd, 1941, 3 avid fishermen and poker-playing pals boarded this railroad car in Washington, D.C., looking forward to a 10-day fishing excursion off the coast of New England. They were joined by the 4th member of their party, a wealthy and well-known executive with a certain amount of celebrity, who was followed by a cadre of reporters. The 4 fishing buddies boarded this car, headed for New London, Connecticut, with the reporters in tow. At New London, the 4 pals boarded the wealthy executive's yacht for a relaxing day of ocean fishing off Martha's Vineyard. Once out of sight of the reporters, the yacht was met by the U.S. Navy heavy cruiser Augusta. The wealthy executive was taken aboard and transported to a remote location off the coast of Newfoundland where, on August 9th, he was transferred to the British battleship Prince of Wales for a secret meeting with the British Prime Minister, Winston Churchill. By now, you've probably deduced that the wealthy executive was President Franklin Delano Roosevelt. And now you know that this railroad car, located at the McCormick-Stillman Railroad Park in Scottsdale, was the initial vehicle in a plot to mislead the American press and facilitate a top-secret mission prior to America's entry into World War II. The meeting between FDR and Winston Churchill resulted in the Atlantic Charter, a joint U.S. and British declaration of democratic principles in opposition to Nazi Germany. By the way, once the fishing trip was concluded, the 4 buddies rode this railroad car back from New London, Connecticut to Washington, D.C., probably playing a few hands of poker along the way. 4 months after the Atlantic Charter was declared, 4 months after the secret meeting, the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor and the United States found itself fully engaged in World War II. In order to protect the president and ensure additional secrecy with regard to his movements, this car was housed in a special underground facility beneath the Bureau of Engraving building. This allowed the president to board unobserved for secret trips to U.S. military installations during the war. If you're a Canadian visitor or seasonal resident in Scottsdale, you're probably familiar with NORAD, the North American Air Defense Command, a joint Canada-U.S. air defense agreement. The initial agreement was reached between Canadian Prime Minister William Lloyd Mackenzie King and Franklin Delano Roosevelt in August of 1940 at Ogdensburg, New York, and signed in this railroad car. During their discussions, both Prime Minister King and President Roosevelt slept over in this car at a secluded railroad siding surrounded by Secret Service agents and soldiers with fixed bayonets. The initial agreement, called the Ogdensburg Declaration, was critically important to Canada's security, as several regiments of the Canadian Army and most of its Air Force were deployed in Britain during the war. This car actually has a name. It's the Roald Amundsen Car. Let's take a look inside. Hi, Bob.
Hi.
How are you?
Okay, how are you?
Fine. This is Bob Adler. Bob is a docent here at the McCormick-Stillman Railroad Park, and nobody knows more about the Amundsen car than Bob. He's going to take us for a walkthrough.
Let's go. As we enter the Roald Amundsen, the first area that we come to is the area that was occupied by the cook and the porter. They were the servants in the car, or the crew, and the first door is the kitchen where they cooked for the President of the United States. In there you can see the coal stove that they cooked on, and in the mirror you can see the refrigerator freezer units that are over on the left side. The second door is called the pantry, also part of the work area for the cook and the porter, and where they kept their pots and pans. It has a pass-through where the cook could pass the food through to the porter, and he could take it out to the dining area and serve the president. The third room is where the cook and the porter lived while they were working on the train. It has a bed that pulls down from the ceiling, and the two chairs that you see down below come together and make another bed. The little table that's there drops down and makes room for the chairs to come together and make the bed. This is the dining area where the president ate his meals and perhaps spent time meeting with people. The picture on the wall there is Mamie Eisenhower in the polka dot skirt. That was taken on Eisenhower's campaign trip in this car in 1952. At that time, the car was owned by the New York Central Railroad, and they loaned it to Eisenhower for his campaign trip. He traveled around the country for 2 months living in this car and campaigning, but that's the only time they used it. And the picture is taken right there where it's hanging. The table that you see in the corner of the picture is the same table that's still here. All the china is the original Pullman china and silverware. The third door is where the president would have slept. That's the best room in the house, actually, and could actually be called the presidential suite. It also has a pull-down bed, which probably hardly ever got used when the presidents were traveling in this car. And his bed runs in the other direction, so it's 6 inches longer than the other beds. It's 6.5 feet long. And his room is a foot wider than the other rooms, and his is the only room that doesn't have a sink and toilet right in his room. Go ahead.
And the reason he doesn't have a sink and toilet in his room is because he has his own bathroom with a shower. And of course the sink and toilet as well. Okay. The third adjoining room that could be considered part of the presidential suite could have been a sitting room for the president, but it also has a pull-down bed and its own sink and toilet, so if the president had someone else traveling with him that needed their own room to sleep in, they could have slept in there. And this final room in the Roald Amundsen is called the observation room, and President Roosevelt spent a lot of his traveling time in this very room. In many cases, he played solitaire, sitting right where I am now. And there are 3 pictures up on the wall here that show President Roosevelt sitting in the chair right where I am now.
Wow,
What a great place from which to give a speech. In fact, this car was used by Presidents Hoover and Eisenhower during their respective presidential campaigns of 1932 and 1952. Ike and his wife Mamie traveled the United States in this car for 2 months during the 1952 campaign. Earl Eisenhower Jr., a Scottsdale resident and Historic Preservation Commissioner, shares with us some of the memories of his Uncle Dwight's campaign.
Well, as I said a little bit earlier, two things. One was the old whistle-stop train was a time-honored political fact of life in those days. I mean, if you could get hold of a train, that was great. And another thing was that Aunt Mamie had an inner ear problem most all of her life. So she only flew under duress. And in fact, the only time I remember her doing it was coming back from Paris. She was very sick. She had pneumonia, double, triple, but she had to fly back from Paris, and she didn't like it, but she had to. So that was one of the reasons that Dwight decided to do this train trip. It was time that he could spend with her, you know, in this car. He could, if he wanted to, seal himself off from the rest of the entourage. You can imagine a presidential campaign, there's some more hangers-on than you need to have, and he decided that was one way he and Mamie could spend a little time without disrupting the whole political process that he was going through at the time. So I think that was two of the big reasons, you know, just the historical reason of doing it, plus the Aunt Mamie's condition. And I think that's when he went out on the end of the car and talked to the people. I think he enjoyed it because he was communicating with actual people. He wasn't doing it through television or radio or something like that. He was actually seeing faces in front of him. And I think he liked that part of it. And he to that extent, he enjoyed the political side of it, because it was, you say he had a couple months on this car, and they'd make these whistle stops, as they called them in those days, and I was a little bit different attitude for him, but he mastered it very well, because he had this initial attitude of people are basically good, and he went from that premise on.
We hope you've enjoyed this brief visit to a railroad car with secrets, the Amundsen car at the McCormick-Stillman Railroad Park in Scottsdale.
The McCormick-Stillman Railroad Park has dozens of train exhibits and rides for everyone in the family. Be sure to visit there soon. That wraps up this edition of Scottsdale Roundup. If you would like follow-up information on anything you've seen here today, go to the city's website at scottsdaleaz.gov. Look for quick links on the left side of the page and select Watch City Cable 11 and choose Content Pages. Scottsdale Roundup segments are also featured on YouTube under Scottsdale's YouTube channel. Thanks for watching Scottsdale Roundup. I'm Kim Hanna.